Another staffer at the vice president's office is heading for the exits, with Vincent Evans, deputy director of public engagement and intergovernmental affairs, leaving for Capitol Hill, where he is joining the Congressional Black Caucus. He is now the 5th Harris staffer to leave, and the Washington Post is reporting that another is also looking to resign soon. All of this as there have been claims of tension in the vice president's office. That includes a blistering report describing Harris as a bully who dishes out, quote, soul-destroying criticism. But a source close to Evans insists he is still on good terms with the vice president. Emily, there have been a lot of damning reports, from the Washington Post one to the CNN one that had nearly 3 dozen sources. I mean, they talk about the vice president not being confident, being hard on staff. And this is nothing new for the number 2 person in the line of succession. She has a history of this going back to California.
That's exactly right, Kaylee. Not only back to her time as Attorney General and also DA in San Francisco, but also on the campaign. Remember, when she dropped out of the race, there were tons of reporting about office infighting, about essentially a civil war between her staff, about the conflict of a lot of her family members that held positions there in her campaign staff, and those that felt that they were sort of had whiplash of her policy. They said we couldn't keep up. It was a toxic environment, and she wasn't doing anything to lead. And I think that's the larger point here, that when something like that, when those rumors or reports follow you wherever you go, then it seems to me that there's an absolute dearth of leadership there, because a true leader would not just manage staff, would not have this continual thing plaguing her. It's like Jacob Marley chains. Clearly, there is at least a modicum of truth there, and a true leader wouldn't have any of it.
Right. Well, I want to alert our viewers as I pull up this next story. You are not entering an episode of Veep right now. Nope, this actually happened. This was tweeted by Vice President Kamala Harris yesterday. Because of the bipartisan infrastructure law, America is moving again. That's what infrastructure is all about, getting people moving. Harris, how do you tweet that people are moving on a day when hundreds of people are literally stuck on an interstate, I-95, right in her backyard?
Well, I'm starting to wonder if she's not spending more time with the president, because, I mean, he is the gaffmeister.
Yeah.
And I asked Jimmy Fallon this last hour, is it contagious? Like, can you catch gaffiness? And, you know, a bigger point in all of that, though, is that when he addresses the nation on the failing Omicron surge response from the White House, he also is bragging and touting all the things that they've done. I mean, this is a theme now with this White House. Pay no attention to the monster that's about to chew off your foot. Just pay attention to the 6-inch stiletto on the other foot. I don't really understand how they don't think we don't see what they're doing, because we do. It's political game. But I don't want my vice president or anybody at the top to be so distracted by people leaving. Okay, Vincent Evans just isn't some guy on her staff. He's another senior aide. He's a person who would be in there, in the goo, trying to get things right. She's replaced a comms team more than once. And look, with President Trump, I know people are going to bring this up. What about Sean Spicer? What about the 11 days or so with Anthony Scaramucci? What about all the... Look, it happens. But on one staff that has an approval rating underwater by, I think she's at like a 32% approval, which is an improvement over 28, I guess, right? Still way underwater. Right. I don't want that person being distracted by all of this. So we need to know that she's able to do those 9 jobs that we scroll on the Faulkner Focus that the president's given her.
If she just does one, I'll be happy.
Yeah, just one, please. One of them. You know, Kennedy, I do think there's a connection there. You know, Harris mentions just being distracted by people leaving. Well, there's just gaffe after gaffe after gaffe. And like yesterday, to tweet about moving, when literally, if you just look up at your television screen, and there are lots in the White House, you know, you can't walk down the hall past an office without seeing a television screen with a news organization on there. You know, you'd think that you wouldn't tweet this as you're looking at images of landlocked cars. Maybe it's just that she doesn't have a staff to stop these things from happening.
Or maybe she has a staff who just can't stand her and they're doing whatever they can to undermine her once again. Like, I almost felt bad for her when I read this tweet, because simultaneously you have I-95 shut down, people stuck in their cars for over a day, overnight, in, you know, freezing temperatures, including children and sick people. And then you have an Amtrak that's not moving for the same amount of time with no food, no bathrooms. Imagine what people were doing on that train, you know, stuck in what felt like little death capsules. So, and this is what she's tweeting about. You guys were doing such a great job. Like, infrastructure is amazing. So I would feel bad for her, but she has the choice to pull her head out of the sand and read her briefs, and she's not doing that clearly.
No, clearly not. The Washington Post, it's one thing they reported is she doesn't read her briefs, and then she blames staffers when things go poorly. But, Ben, all the gaffes, all the negative news stories, they are adding up. I mean, Harris just mentioned 32% approval in USA Today. That's not good. Yeah, maybe it's over 28% where it was, but that's really a bad number.
No, it's a bad number, especially for a vice president. You may have turnover to White House. I'm talking about for the president of the United States of America.
Yeah.
Vice presidential staffs don't have turnover like this. If you've ever worked around a White House,
Yes.
even Cheney, who was a tough guy to work for, when I got the privilege to work with the Bush and the Cheney administration, they didn't have turnover like this because you're the vice president. But the biggest troubling part for me with the tweet is not how out of touch is the fact that this woman clearly doesn't know what she's doing and what her job is. When you see people stranded, you should be going to work for those people. When you see a crisis like was on TV yesterday, you should be making phone calls and making sure that food, water, aid, whatever it takes from the federal government is being utilized, FEMA's being used. That's the tweet you should put out. Not that not propaganda, that America's moving today. Now, what she was probably doing was going around the White House trying to get what I refer to as the hostage pictures from her happy staff that are still there, like we saw last time when they said people were disgruntled. She was probably running around yelling at people, take a picture that you're happy and tweet it right now so everybody knows you love me. That's what she's focused on, not on the American people that were suffering, not on the government, not on FEMA getting help to these people. That's what her job should be.
Yeah, well, what you're talking about is distraction. She's distracted.
Yeah.
The one thing she's not, though, is the missing Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation. So there's that.
Yeah, he's
maybe
probably
they should
distracted
tweet
by
together.
him. Well, his name's being floated for the top job, you know, down the road.
Of
So
moving
maybe
the
distracted by
transportation?
him just a little bit.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.